The moment you stop listening to this, your old life wins. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because what I'm about to tell you is not motivation. It's not advice. It's not another temporary burst of inspiration designed to make you feel powerful for 10 minutes before you return to the same habits that are quietly destroying your future. This is something else. Something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. A truth so uncomfortable that the average person would rather distract themselves than face it. And if you're honest, you've been doing the same thing, not because you're weak, not because you're incapable, but because facing reality requires something that most people have lost: attention, real attention, the ability to sit still long enough to see what's actually happening inside your own mind. Look around, everywhere you go, people are searching for noise. The second they wake up, they reach for their phones. The second they feel uncomfortable, they search for entertainment. The second they are left alone with their thoughts, they find a way to escape them. Music, videos, notifications, conversations, anything. Anything except silence. Because silence reveals things. And most people are terrified of what they might discover. Have you ever noticed how difficult it has become to simply sit in a room without touching your phone? Not because you need it, because you've trained yourself to depend on it. Every notification promises something. Every swipe offers possibility. Every scroll creates anticipation. Your brain learns quickly, faster than you realize. It begins to associate movement with reward, action with stimulation, distraction with relief. And before long, stillness starts to feel uncomfortable. Focus starts to feel painful. Discipline starts to feel impossible. But that's not because you've become incapable of discipline. It's because you've become addicted to distraction. And addiction is dangerous because it rarely announces itself. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, "I'm addicted." Instead, it happens gradually, quietly, almost invisibly, one small compromise at a time, one excuse at a time, one moment of weakness repeated often enough to become a lifestyle. That's how transformation works, both good and bad. The person who becomes exceptional doesn't do it overnight, and neither does the person who wastes their potential. Both are built through repetition. Both are built through habits. Both are built through choices that seem insignificant in the moment. But only one of them leads somewhere worth going. There was a man named Marcus. By the time he was 20 years old, everyone believed he would become successful. Teachers admired him, friends respected him, family members talked about his future as if greatness was guaranteed. And honestly, it seemed that way. Marcus was intelligent, creative, driven. He wasn't the smartest person in every room, but he had something more important. He had hunger. The kind of hunger that makes someone willing to sacrifice comfort for growth. The kind of hunger that makes impossible goals feel achievable. The kind of hunger that separates dreamers from builders. When Marcus talked about his future, people listened. Not because he was convincing, because he believed every word he said. And belief is powerful. People can feel it. He wanted to build companies, create something meaningful, become someone remembered, not for fame, not for status, but because he couldn't imagine living an ordinary life. The idea of settling terrified him. The idea of becoming average felt unbearable. Then something happened. Nothing dramatic, no tragedy, no catastrophic failure, no life-changing disaster. Just comfort. Comfort arrived slowly, almost kindly. It told him there was no rush. It told him he could start tomorrow. It told him one day off wouldn't matter. Then 1 week became 2. 2 became 6 months. 6 months became years. And Marcus never noticed the transition. Because comfort doesn't feel dangerous. That's why it wins. The most dangerous things in life rarely look dangerous at first. Poison tastes sweet, chains feel light, and comfort feels safe. But safety has a price. Every day Marcus delayed his goals. He felt a little less capable. Every promise he broke to himself weakened his confidence. Every excuse became easier to believe, until eventually, he stopped trusting himself altogether. Think about that. What happens when you stop trusting your own word? What happens when your mind realizes that every promise you make will probably be broken? You lose power, not external power, internal power, the kind that determines whether you'll actually follow through when things become difficult. Because discipline isn't built when you succeed. It's built when you keep promises to yourself, especially the small ones. Wake up early, exercise, ride, learn, work, Dr. Kate. These seem insignificant. But every time you follow through, your mind records evidence. Evidence that you can be trusted. Evidence that your actions match your intentions. Evidence that you are becoming stronger. Most people don't understand this. They think confidence comes from achievements, but achievements come after confidence. Confidence begins when you prove to yourself that your word means something. Without that foundation, success becomes unstable, and Marcus slowly lost it. Not all at once. Piece by piece, one broken promise at a time. Years later, he found an old notebook hidden inside a drawer. Inside were pages filled with goals, ideas, dreams, plans, everything he once believed would happen. He sat quietly flipping through those pages, and for the first time in years, he felt something he had been avoiding: regret. Not because he failed, because he never truly tried. Failure hurts, but unrealized potential hurts differently. Failure says you fought and lost. Regret says you never entered the arena at all, and that pain stays with people. It follows them, it waits for them, it grows heavier every year, because deep down every human being knows what they're capable of becoming. Maybe not exactly, but enough to recognize when they're living beneath their potential. That's why some people feel exhausted, even when they haven't worked hard. They're carrying the weight of the person they were supposed to become. And that weight grows heavier every day. The worst part? Most people blame circumstances. They blame luck. They blame opportunity. They blame timing. But if they were completely honest, they'd discover something uncomfortable. The biggest obstacle wasn't outside them. It was inside them. It was the voice constantly negotiating with their ambitions. The voice saying later, tomorrow, not today. You deserve a break. You've already done enough. Nobody will notice. Nobody cares. And because that voice sounds reasonable, people trust it. But reasonable isn't always right. Sometimes reasonable is just fear wearing a smarter disguise. Fear of effort, fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of discovering what happens when excuses finally disappear. Because once excuses are gone, only responsibility remains. And responsibility is heavy. It demands action. It demands accountability. Intentional. It demands growth. Many people would rather remain distracted than accept responsibility. Because distraction is comfortable. Responsibility changes everything. The truth is that your future is being built right now. Not when you're motivated. Not when conditions improve. Not when life becomes easier. Right now. Through every decision you make. Through every habit you repeat. Through every thought you allow to dominate your mind. The person you'll become 5 years from now is already forming. The question is whether you're helping create that person or slowly destroying them. Most people never ask themselves that question, and that's exactly why they wake up years later, wondering where their life went. Time doesn't disappear. It accumulates. Every wasted day joins the next. Every ignored opportunity combines with the last. Every excuse builds on top of another excuse, until one day reality arrives, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like a mirror placed in front of your face, showing you exactly who you've become. And reality never lies. It doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care about your potential. It only reflects your actions. That's what makes it so difficult to face, because somewhere deep down, you already know the truth. You know which habits are hurting you. You know which excuses you've repeated too many times. You know which opportunities you've avoided. You know which version of yourself you've been postponing. The question isn't whether you know. The question is whether you're finally ready to act on what you know. Because knowledge without action becomes another form of distraction. Another way to feel productive while remaining exactly where you are. And if there's one thing you should understand before this video continues, it's this. Your life is not being destroyed by one catastrophic mistake. It's being shaped by thousands of tiny decisions nobody sees, tiny decisions repeated daily, tiny decisions that seem harmless, tiny decisions that eventually become your identity, because identity isn't something you find, it's something you build. One choice at a time, one habit at a time, one action at a time. And right now, whether you realize it or not, you're building something. The only question is, are you building the future you want, or the future you'll eventually regret? Most people believe their biggest enemy is failure. They're wrong. Failure is honest. Failure tells you exactly where you stand. It gives feedback. It reveals weaknesses. It forces growth. Failure can be painful, but it can also be useful. The real enemy is something far more dangerous. It's the illusion that you still have time, the belief that you'll eventually become the person you keep postponing, the assumption that one day you'll suddenly wake up with more discipline, more focus, more courage, and more determination than you have right now. But life doesn't work that way. Tomorrow doesn't magically create a new version of you. It simply amplifies who you already are. If you're disciplined today, you'll likely be more disciplined tomorrow. If you're distracted today, you'll likely be more distracted tomorrow, because habits compound, everything compounds, successes compounds, failure compounds, confidence compounds, fear compounds. Even the smallest actions gain power through repetition. That's why the future arrives much faster than people expect. One day you're 18. The next you're looking in a mirror wondering how 10 years disappeared so quickly, and the answer is always the same. They disappeared one ordinary day at a time. Nobody notices life changing while it's happening. Nobody wakes up and says, "Today is the day I become average." Nobody wakes up and says, "Today is the day I abandon my dreams." Those transformations happen quietly, high inside normal routines, hidden inside comfortable habits, inside choices that seem harmless. And that's exactly why they're so dangerous, because if destruction arrived like a storm, everyone would prepare for it. If wasted potential looked like a warning sign, everyone would avoid it. But it doesn't. It looks like convenience. It looks like entertainment. It looks like scrolling for 10 minutes. Then 20. Then an hour. Then another. It looks like choosing comfort when effort is required. It looks like avoiding difficult conversations, avoiding difficult decisions, avoiding difficult truths, until avoidance becomes your default setting. And once that happens, growth becomes impossible. There was a time when warriors understood something modern society has forgotten. They understood that comfort creates weakness, not because comfort itself is evil, because comfort becomes addictive. The human mind naturally seeks the path of least resistance. It's a survival mechanism. Thousands of years ago, conserving energy helped people stay alive. Today, that same instinct is working against you. Because the world has changed. Food is everywhere. Entertainment is everywhere. Distraction is everywhere. Pleasure is available instantly. And your brain cannot always distinguish between what's beneficial and what's merely satisfying. That's why people become trapped. Not because they're stupid, not because they're incapable, because they're fighting ancient programming inside a modern environment. An environment specifically designed to capture attention. Think about that. Entire industries spend billions of dollars learning how to keep you distracted. Billions. Teams of psychologists, scientists, engineers, marketing experts, all working toward a single goal, keeping your attention for as long as possible, because attention is valuable. In fact, attention may be the most valuable resource on earth. Where your attention goes, your life follows. If your attention belongs to distractions, your future belongs to distractions. If your attention belongs to growth, your future belongs to growth. It's really that simple. And that's why controlling your attention is one of the most important skills you'll ever develop. Yet most people never learn how. They become consumers instead of creators, observers instead of participants, spectators instead of builders. They spend years watching other people live extraordinary lives while convincing themselves they'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow. That dangerous word, the cemetery of ambition, the graveyard of potential, the place where countless dreams go to die. Tomorrow has destroyed more futures than failure ever could, because failure requires action. Tomorrow requires nothing. It allows you to feel hopeful without changing anything. It allows you to imagine progress without creating progress. It allows you to stay exactly where you are while pretending movement is coming. That's why it's so seductive. That's why it's so powerful. And that's why so many people become trapped by it. Years ago, an old mentor told his students something they never forgot. He said, "The life you want is hidden inside the things you're avoiding." At first, nobody understood. They thought success was hidden in talent, money, opportunity, luck, concreations. But as time passed, they realized what he meant. The conversation you're avoiding, the work you're avoiding, the challenge you're avoiding, the responsibility you're avoiding, the discomfort you're avoiding. Those things often contain the exact growth you're searching for. Because growth lives beyond comfort. Always. It has never existed anywhere else. You don't become stronger by remaining where you already are. You become stronger by entering territory that forces adaptation. That's how muscles grow. That's how skills grow. That's how confidence grows. Through resistance, through challenge, through discomfort. Yet modern culture teaches the opposite. It teaches people to avoid discomfort at all costs, to seek convenience, to seek ease, to seek immediate gratification. And then society wonders why anxiety is rising, why confidence is falling, why so many people feel lost. Because a life built around avoiding discomfort eventually becomes uncomfortable anyway. The difference is that now you're suffering without growing. At least meaningful struggle gives you something in return. It gives strength, wisdom, resilience, character. Avoidance gives nothing except temporary relief. And temporary relief often creates permanent problems. The strongest people understand this. They understand that pain is not always the enemy. Sometimes pain is information. Sometimes pain is transformation. Sometimes pain is proof that you're moving beyond the limits of who you used to be. That's why exceptional people behave differently. Not because they enjoy suffering, because they understand its purpose. They know that every meaningful achievement requires sacrifice. Every single one. Nobody becomes great accidentally. Nobody builds an extraordinary life by following every impulse. Nobody creates excellence while remaining comfortable all the time. Excellence demands something: time, energy, focus, commitment, discipline. And discipline is becoming increasingly rare, not because it's impossible, because distraction is easier. The average person checks their phone dozens of times every day, sometimes 100, not because something important happened, because they've been conditioned to seek stimulation, conditioned to escape stillness, conditioned to avoid boredom. But boredom is where creativity begins. Boredom is where ideas emerge. Boredom is where self-awareness develops. Boredom is where many breakthroughs are born. The problem is that most people never stay bored long enough to discover what's waiting on the other side. They reach for distraction immediately, and in doing so, they interrupt their own potential. Imagine planting a seed, then digging it up every day to check whether it's growing. Eventually, you'll destroy it. That's what many people do with their lives. They never allow consistency enough time to work. They quit too early, change direction too quickly, seek results too soon, and then wonder why nothing changes. Real transformation is slower than people expect, but faster than they realize. Daily actions seem insignificant until years pass, then suddenly everything is different. The disciplined person becomes powerful, the distracted person becomes frustrated, the focused person becomes successful, the careless person becomes regretful, not because of one massive decision, because of thousands of small ones, repeated relentlessly. That's the truth. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid. Your future isn't determined by what you do occasionally. It's determined by what you do consistently. Every day you're casting votes. Votes for the person you're becoming. Every action matters. Every habit matters. Every choice matters. Even when nobody is watching, especially when nobody is watching, because character is built in private. Discipline is built in private. Identity is built in private. Long before success becomes visible, the world only sees the result. It never sees the years of preparation, the sacrifices, the repetition, the lonely moments, the internal battles, the countless times someone chose growth over comfort. But those moments matter more than people realize, because eventually, life reveals exactly what you've been practicing. And whether you know it or not, you're practicing something right now. You're training your mind every day, training it to focus, or training it to drift, training it to act, or training it to hesitate, training it to become stronger, or training it to become dependent. The choice is happening continuously, even when you're unaware of it. And that's why awareness matters. Because once you become aware of the patterns controlling your life, you gain something powerful: choice. Real choice, not automatic behavior, not unconscious repetition. Choice. The ability to decide who you're going to become, the ability to interrupt destructive patterns, the ability to reclaim control over your future. And once that awareness arrives, everything changes. Because from that moment forward, you can no longer pretend you don't know. You can no longer blame ignorance. You can no longer hide behind excuses. You begin to see the truth clearly, and sometimes clarity is uncomfortable, but clarity is also freedom, because the moment you see the cage, you can finally begin looking for the key, and most people never realize this. The key was never outside them. It was hidden in the decisions they refused to make, the responsibilities they refused to accept, the discipline they refused to develop, the discomfort they refused to face. And the moment they finally face those things, their entire future begins to change. The most dangerous moment in a person's life is not when they fail. It's when they stop believing they can become more. Because failure still contains hope. Failure means you tried. Failure means you're still in the fight. But the moment a person accepts less than they're capable of, something inside them begins to die. Not immediately, not dramatically, quietly, the same way a fire disappears, not all at once, one fading ember at a time. And that's what happened to Marcus. Years had passed since he wrote those ambitious goals in his notebook. Years since he promised himself he would build something meaningful. Years since he looked at the future with excitement instead of fear. Now his life looked normal, painfully normal. Wake up, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. And from the outside, nothing seemed wrong. That's the frightening part. Most people imagine wasted potential looks like disaster. It doesn't. It usually looks ordinary: a normal job, a normal routine, a normal life, a normal existence. Until one day you realize you traded your dreams for comfort and never even noticed the exchange. One evening Marcus sat alone in his apartment. The room was silent. No music, no television, no notifications, just silence. The kind of silence most people run from. And for the first time in years, he stopped distracting himself. He stopped pretending. He stopped negotiating. And he asked himself a question so simple that it terrified him. If I continue living exactly like this, Where will I be in 10 years? The answer arrived immediately, not because he guessed, because he knew deep down. Everyone knows. They know where their habits are leading. They know where their excuses are leading. They know where their choices are leading. Most people just don't want to look. Marcus looked, and what he saw frightened him. Not poverty, not failure, not embarrassment. Regret, pure regret. The kind that arrives when you realize you had the ability to become more and chose comfort instead. The kind that arrives when you understand that nobody stole your future. You surrendered it, one easy decision at a time, one excuse at a time, one delay at a time, and suddenly Marcus understood something that changed everything. His problem wasn't lack of knowledge. He knew what to do. His problem wasn't lack of opportunity. Opportunities had appeared many times. His problem wasn't lack of talent. He had enough talent. His problem was that he had become addicted, not to drugs, not to alcohol, not even to entertainment. He had become addicted to avoiding discomfort, and once he saw it, he couldn't unsee it. Every excuse suddenly looked ridiculous. Every delay looked unnecessary. Every complaint looked dishonest, because the truth was standing directly in front of him. The life he wanted existed on the other side of discomfort. It always had. And the same is true for you. Think about it. What are you avoiding right now? What conversation, what responsibility, what challenge, what opportunity, what decision? Because whatever immediately came to mind, that's probably where your next level is hiding. Growth doesn't hide in places you've already conquered. It hides in places you're afraid to enter. That's why fear is such a powerful teacher. Fear points toward the areas where transformation is waiting. Most people run from fear, the exceptional learn from it. Marcus finally understood this. And the next morning, something unusual happened. He didn't feel motivated. He didn't feel confident. He didn't feel inspired. But he acted anyway, for the first time in years. Not because it was easy, because it was necessary, and that's where real change begins. Not when motivation arrives, when excuses leave. People spend too much time waiting to feel ready. Ready is a myth. Nobody feels ready. The entrepreneur doesn't feel ready. The athlete doesn't feel ready. The creator doesn't feel ready. The leader doesn't feel ready. They move before certainty arrives. And that's why they grow. Because certainty is usually the result of action, not the cause of it. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Marcus began rebuilding trust with himself, slowly, painfully, one promise at a time. Every morning he did what he said he would do, not perfectly, consistently, and something remarkable happened. His confidence returned, not because someone encouraged him, because his actions finally matched his words. That's where confidence comes from. Not compliments, not achievements, not validation. Confidence comes from evidence. Evidence that you can depend on yourself. Evidence that you'll continue when things become difficult. Evidence that your word still means something. Most people are searching for confidence while ignoring the source. The source is action. Always action. Years later, Marcus found that same notebook again. The one filled with dreams. The one filled with goals. The one that had once reminded him of everything he failed to become. But this time it felt different. Because he wasn't reading it as a man full of regret. He was reading it as a man in motion. And motion changes everything. You don't have to become extraordinary overnight. You just have to stop standing still. Because the moment you start moving forward, the future changes, not instantly, inevitably. And that's the part nobody tells you. Your future isn't created by massive breakthroughs. It's created by daily decisions, repeated long enough to become destiny. Every day you're voting, voting for the person you'll become. Every action casts a vote. Every habit casts a vote. Every excuse casts a vote. Every sacrifice casts a vote. And eventually the votes are counted, not by society, not by your family, by reality. Reality counts every vote, and reality never makes mistakes. That's why some people wake up 10 years later living lives they love, and others wake up wondering where everything went wrong. The difference was never one moment, it was thousands. Thousands of decisions nobody noticed, thousands of choices nobody applauded, thousands of moments where one person chose growth and another chose comfort. Right now, while you're listening to these words, another version of your future is being created. The question is, who is creating it? The disciplined version of you, or the distracted version, the courageous version, or the comfortable version, the version that takes responsibility, or the version that makes excuses? Because both futures exist, both are possible, and every choice pushes you closer to one of them. Imagine meeting yourself 10 years from now, not the version you hope becomes real, the version your current habits are creating. Would that person thank you? Or would they ask why you waited so long, why you kept delaying, why you kept settling, why you kept betraying the dreams you once promised to protect? That's the conversation most people never want to have, because they already know the answer. Deep down, you know too. You know whether you're moving toward your potential or away from it. You know whether you're growing or hiding. You know whether you're building your future or escaping from it. The truth has been with you this entire time, waiting patiently for you to stop running from it. And maybe that's why you're here right now. Maybe this isn't just another video. Maybe this is the moment you finally stop negotiating with the person you're capable of becoming. Maybe this is the moment you stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting for perfect timing. Stop waiting for permission, because nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to build your future. Nobody is coming to create your discipline. Nobody is coming to fight your battles. That responsibility belongs to you. It always has. And despite what you might believe, that's not bad news, that's freedom. Because if you're responsible, then you're powerful. If your choices created your current situation, then your choices can create a different future. And that means your story isn't finished. Not even close. You haven't missed your chance. You haven't run out of time. You haven't reached the end. But you are reaching a decision that every person eventually faces. Remain who you've been, or become who you could be. Stay comfortable, or become capable. Stay distracted, or become dangerous. Dangerous to your excuses, dangerous to your limitations, dangerous to the version of yourself that has been holding you back for years. Because the truth is, the person destroying your future was never failure, never bad luck, never other people, never your circumstances. It was the version of you that kept choosing comfort over growth. Defeat that version, and your life changes. Feed that version, and nothing changes. The choice has always been yours. It is yours now, and it will still be yours tomorrow. But one day, tomorrow will run out. One day there will be no more second chances, no more waiting, no more later, only the life you built. And when that day arrives, when you stand face to face with the consequences of every decision you've ever made, there will be only one question that matters. Not how talented you were, not how intelligent you were, not how much potential you had. Only this: did you become the person you were capable of becoming, or did you spend your entire life addicted to the comfort that kept you from becoming them? The answer to that question is being written right now, with every decision, with every action, with every excuse, with every moment. And the next line of that story depends entirely on what you do after this ends.